Welcome to the first official episode of the Performance Advantage podcast with myself, Dr. Will O'Connor, and Dr. Matthew Miller from MTB PhD. Matthew, how are you doing?
Yep, pretty good, thanks.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
And Mark Leishman, A.K.A Kevin, has asked us about cross-training for endurance.
Oh, so first episode, first shout out.
Yeah.
Normally you build into the shout outs.
Yeah, well, I guess we've sort of had a lead-in from some of our previous live stuff. Cross-training, I think this is going to be a debate, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we talk about cross-training, you're into the gym and I'm not.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe what we'll need to do is like go over there and change your mind, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't like the gym.
Yeah, but you used to like the gym. Maybe you're just burnt out.
Yeah, no, I did. This is pre-endurance Will O'Connor. Rugby and gym was definitely my game. Pushing the mass gainer. I definitely enjoyed that. Got up to about 85 kgs there, Matthew.
Okay. It was okay.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty big for you.
Yeah, it's about 10 kgs heavier than I am now. I found some photos the other day. It's pretty crazy how your body changes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Matt, why are you pro gym if we're talking about cross training?
Well, there's lots of reasons why I'm pro strength training. The main reason is because when you do like a really, really hard, heavy lift, you're creating these new neuromuscular junctions to these muscle fibers you already have. So these muscle fibers are already there. Say if you're doing a squat, you have all these muscle fibers, and a lot of them you're not actually using. You're just kind of using the ones that you're using to bike or run. And there's some other ones in there that aren't being used. When you do a big, heavy lift, one of the very first adaptations that happens from strength training is you get these new neural pathways to use these muscles. And that's really good if you're trying to produce more power or run faster or bike harder.
Why would you not just do that on the bike or running or whatever? Why are you specifically needing the gym for that?
Well, because doing a 1 rep max or a 5 rep max squat is way different than, jogging up a hill or pushing a big gear. I consider those endurance training. And strength training is just a different thing that you can't do while you're doing endurance training, in my opinion.
So then you can't do it on the bike, right? That's sort of understandable because it's not load bearing. You can't exert enough force in order to recruit that large amount of muscle. So my argument would be, well then, are you, just because you train those muscles under load, under weight, like doing a squat, how does that translate into you being able to use them on the bike if you couldn't do that work on the bike anyway?
That's a pretty good point. I don't really have an argument against that one. That's a pretty good one. But if you need to do a massive sprint, or you need to start to produce more power, just having those muscle fibers, there and ready to use, where they weren't before. Because if you want adaptation, you need to push beyond what you're currently doing. And if your threshold's at 300 watts, by riding at 320 watts isn't going to make you create new neural pathways necessarily. It will up to a certain point. And we see hypertrophy, which is the building of muscles, that happens in endurance athletes. It's not just for people who spend time strength training. But then it kind of stops because you're using type 1 muscle fibers, right?
Yeah.
Predominantly. So we want to use those type 2 muscle fibers.
Yeah, or type 2
Type 2
is generally what? So when we say type 1, we're talking about aerobic, slow twitch. Then we say type 2, we're talking about fast glycolytic fibers, which are predominantly high force, very inefficient fibers. And then there's sort of this type 2X, which can be, I guess, molded into the type of fiber you most need it to be. So that's if you keep training long, slow miles, they'll probably get very mitochondrial dense and become very efficient, great at burning fat, utilizing oxygen. If you're just smashing tin in the gym, then they're probably just going to build on themselves and remain relatively inefficient.
But also produce a lot of force.
Yes, lots of force.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's a juggling act, right? Where if I was to use gym for endurance, the way I tried to use it for myself was during the build up to my first ultra marathon. I thought, okay, the main gains I need to make are under load, because it's not the running the 40 to 50 Ks that's a problem for me. It's the running 80 to 100 Ks. And you can't do that in training. Otherwise, not that you can't do it in training, but you're most probably not going to, because you'll just wreck yourself. So I figured that putting a large amount of weight on my back and squatting it would then recruit those muscles that otherwise I would have to run for 5 hours to rely on, if that makes sense. Because of the spatial recruitment principle. You know that?
I don't know that one. I should, because I taught muscle mechanics postgrads last year. I don't think we covered that, so I don't remember it.
Really? The spatial recruitment is essentially like the greater the force, the greater the recruitment of muscle fibers. So when you're walking, you recruit, if you had 100 units of muscle, you would recruit the same number 1 to 20. Every time you get out the door, 1 to 20, 1 to 20. So if you never overload, you never go 1 to 25. And as number 1 to 5 start to fatigue, you start to then rely on number 20 to 25. And then if you started to run, so you went from a walk to a run, you now start to recruit numbers 20 to 50. And so that spatial recruitment is the same recruitment pattern every single time, until the point where you recruit the fiber number 100. Now, doing aerobic exercise, you're never going to get to that point. Whether that's absolutely necessary is arguable, but if you can at least train those fiber types, number 50 to 70, say, that, which I would hypothesize is around a type 2X, if you can convert those to more aerobic but still high force based fibers, then you should be able to generate a lot of force. So ride at a high power, swim at a fast pace, run at a fast pace, but still do it relatively aerobically.
Yep.
There you go. There's a quick refresher on the course that.
There you go. Thank you. I needed that one. Yeah. I see what you're saying. So
look, I'd have to refresh it myself, but that is the fundamental principle behind it.
Right, but you're saying it didn't work for you. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not going to say it didn't work. I'm saying I didn't like it. I didn't notice like this dramatic improvement. Now in swimming, that's a different story, because you cannot apply enough force on the water. The water as a medium is not dense enough, and there's no gravity whatsoever. So in order to overload your muscles to generate force, it's like impossible. So I did notice when I tried gym for swimming, I definitely got a lot of not a lot of improvement, but an increased amount. But then when I think about cross training, I'm like, geez, we're already trying to train for one sport. Why do we need to throw everything else in?
Yeah, well, gym's only one thing that you can do. And I don't like to call it gym. I like to call it strength training, because gym is something that someone says when they don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, no, the gym. Not the gym.
Yeah. Like, I go to the gym, I run on the treadmill.
Yeah. Well, they have TVs now, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. And magazines. Yeah. Get on the recumbent bike. Is that what you guys do at the gym?
Yeah, pretty much.
Recumbent cycling? That's like cross training, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you my favorite workout to do in the gym is potentiated plyometrics, where we'll do something like a really, really heavy squat 2 times. And then
Yeah.
immediately when we rack the barbell, we'll turn around and we'll do 2 really quick plyometrics. And even though you're only doing 4 movements, that's just an amazing exercise. That's 1 set, and we'll do like 3 to 5 sets. And that's
So
a pretty good session.
Why are you doing that?
Well, because what we want to improve is power, right? And power is that's plyometrics, where we're producing a lot of force really, really quickly.
Yeah.
Right. So, but what we can do is something called potentiation, where we prime these muscle fibers and have them ready to go to do this really, really powerful movement. And we do that by doing something like a really heavy squat before doing the plyometrics.
Yes, right. So post-activation muscle potentiation is well documented in the literature. So that's sort of like, it definitely works.
So you definitely do that in the gym, eh?
But no, I don't go to the gym.
Okay. Okay. So what do you do for cross training then?
Well, that's a hard one. So at the moment, I'm predominantly focused on running and marathon and up. Currently training so I got a marathon in 10 weeks. I'm doing mountain biking for my cross training.
Okay.
So especially with running and single sports, I'll try to get athletes to incorporate something else, because otherwise, depending on their time availability, it allows for running, especially, you can only do so much because of the loading before you inevitably get injured. But like 10 hours of running is a lot of running, but then it's not a huge amount of time across a week. So like myself, I can train probably around 15 hours, like just available time and energy wise. So that means I get out on the mountain bike a bit. 1, because I enjoy it. 2, it helps energy expenditure and weight maintenance. And then 3, it's specific cardiovascularly, aerobically, and also has some eccentric loading in there.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with triathletes, there's no time. There's no time to try and...
You pretty much are a cross trainer.
Yeah, you're a cross trainer. You're like a professional exerciser.
Yeah.
So with that, cross training, not so much. Like we would put in some band work or muscle activation work, but nothing specific. Yeah. Are you choosing to do something completely different at all, like stand-up paddleboarding?
I've never tried. I don't touch anything near the water. So yeah, like that's just like, no, someone else can do that. If someone's interested in it, then they can keep doing it. But I'm not really sure. Since I've never done it, I can't quite think of how the muscles would kind of work. I'm sure there's
I just use that as an example. Like, what are you doing?
I think so if I'm working with a mountain biker, I think I don't consider road cycling to be cross training, because that's pretty much what they're doing, is they're training to be better at pedaling usually.
Yeah.
So I consider strength training and road cycling to be just pretty much part of what mountain bikers need to be doing all the time. But some different things that they could be doing would be like hiking, or just straight up walking, and a little bit of running. But you need to be careful with running if you're not used to it.
Yeah, running is just the worst kind of sport to get in, to start at. Like once you have built up your tolerance, your lower limb tolerance to training loads, then it's not so bad. Trail running again is not as bad. There comes some sort of risk there. But running, like I would not recommend cyclists do running. They all try and do it. All the roadies try and, that they're having their time off, and and after one day you feel like the fat bastard from Austin Powers. So they start they'll do like these 20K runs just straight off the bat.
Yeah. First run back.
Yeah. For like the next week, and they're like, oh yeah, it's a good break.
Yeah. Ready to get back into training now.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You need to rest.
Legs for for the last 5 days. So yeah, not with road cyclists. But then if we go down to down, across to your more everyday athlete, often they think that gym strength training is quite important. These people generally have, their time isn't as flexible as yours, Matthew. They may have
That's
kids.
true.
They may have a fixed 9 to 5 or some other kind of work structure.
Yeah.
And then they have the other general stresses of time stress. So,
I think it's good for them.
They want to run a half marathon to marathon. What are you recommending?
Well, I think if someone has really limited time, I think if they do strength training, one of the things that they can do on the times when, they need to be taking a break from their aerobic exercise is that they can be, maintaining energy expenditure at a really high level, by just switching the muscle groups that they're using. So for a runner who, maybe they really need to lose weight, but they can't run every day, maybe then on the days that they can't run, they could be doing like a really, really hard upper body workout. And they're not going to, have huge increases in mass in their upper body by doing a really hard upper body workout, especially if their main focus is running, because they're just not going to be able to build the mass, really.
How does that work with the aerobic development and the stress? Like that's a reasonable amount of like physical stress, like a hard gym workout. Strength training,
Yeah, it would be. Like, I wouldn't like add in like if someone's trying to get better at running, they can't run a whole lot because they just actually can't handle it. I wouldn't really add in any like lower body strength training on top of running, maybe in addition, like instead of some running workouts, maybe especially if they can only run like 30 minutes before they kind of crack. If they can only run 30 minutes a day for a week, maybe what we need to do is have them do a really big gym session where they'll have massive energy expenditure in, the same amount of time.
Yeah, well, with running and energy expenditure along these lines, I think we could broach this subject is weight. Like endurance sport is power to weight. Like essentially the lighter you can be without losing muscle, the more efficient you're going to be, the faster you're going to go. Running is a huge one for that because of the weight bearing nature of it. So yeah, what kind of workouts are you going to be prescribing if this person, they just, for whatever reason, due to injuries, maybe their weight, they can't just run, and you've got them in the gym, they definitely don't want to build muscle, and probably due to the nature of them, they have a predisposition to building muscle. How are you going to structure it? Are you doing high reps, low reps?
One of my favorite things to do, just because of the feeling that it gives you, is like a circuit, like an upper body circuit, because it's kind of aerobic. You get really sweaty. You're still moving around a lot of weight, so you're still doing quite a bit of work.
So you look embarrassed when you're at the gym.
Yeah, like you look sweaty. You look cool, right?
Yeah.
When you're gymming,
yeah.
right? So, an upper body circuit's pretty good with probably like 6 different workouts, different muscle groups, a push-pull kind of thing for the different muscle groups. 6 exercises, back to back to back to back to back, then a short little rest. Something like that, and you do 3 sets of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. And then you can add some, something really heavy probably before that, and then finish the circuit.
Yeah.
And, like that's a great way to go. And if you're using all these muscles, that's quite a lot of movement and quite a lot of mass.
Sorry, can you show us those muscles again?
No.
Okay.
Not gonna. No.
Yeah, no, I miss them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, not when we're live. Maybe later. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Right. Okay, so you got a pretty harsh sort of circuit workout within that. How long is that going to take?
You can usually bang out just the circuit in about 20 to 30 minutes, and
so that's sufficient.
And you can do it at home, right? Like I have some that you can do at home, which is really good because not everyone wants to go to the gym. Yeah, no,
definitely. So just a matter of grabbing some frozen water bottles or something like filled with sand or something
Yeah.
like that, that's going to allow at least a bit of load
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
in there. Right.
Yeah. Or maybe buy something. But yeah, sand will do. Yeah.
Sand.
So what kind of cross training do you think's really good?
Oh, look, I'm just not, unless the athlete specifically enjoys. I had one athlete recently, and they really enjoy CrossFit. So, as you know, like CrossFit is extremely taxing on, I guess, the whole adrenal system.
Yeah.
So trying to structure that in within an endurance program is quite hard. But otherwise, I'm not really recommending it. I'm designing a program that I think can have them exercising aerobically more often. The depends on the mentality of runners or even triathletes who need to run, who I deal with. The run walk. So you're getting in enough of a time wise, durational, a lot less distance, but you're breaking the running up with small periods of walking. So if you can get your head around it, it allows that 30 minutes of time where you would normally break down to extend into an hour with 40 to 45 minutes of total running time. That's more how I go about it, unless someone specifically wants to get into the strength-based side of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I talk about my favorite like cross training?
Sure.
Because we kind of mentioned it before, and I think like just hiking and just walking is just great. It's just
Yeah,
great
no,
for everyone.
I 100%. I try and like implement that in as well, especially for marathon runners and ultra runners, like because the majority, like the average time for a marathon is going to be 4 or 5 hours. And it's sort of, it's a catch-22, because if you're taking that average amount of time and then in the ultra it's going to be around 15 to 17 hours, you also aren't as well trained as the people who are taking a far less amount of time. The professionals are taking 2 to 2.5 hours, and you're running the exact same race in 4 to 5 hours. They obviously can bang out a very hard session in 3 hours, which is over what they need to achieve. But then for you to go out and try and run 4 or 5 hours every weekend,
You just can't.
you can't. But then
Yeah.
when you're having to hike or tramp or whatever you want to call it, you're generally carrying at least 2 to 3 kgs, and the ascending and descending, which just exaggerates the load you're putting on your legs,
Yeah.
similar to what you'd have to do in the race. And you get tired and sloppy and extend your stride length and stuff and put more impact through. And that's
Yeah.
what you would
Yeah.
have felt, right? That's what you felt over the weekend.
Oh, yeah. Well, I still feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, like I think it's really good because, when I am, talking with an athlete or, trying to think about what kind of training we could do to improve their fitness, I'll kind of try and think about what's going on actually inside of the muscle, right? And
Yeah.
normally what we
So do
need
I,
to
yeah.
do, what we want to do normally for someone doing some sort of aerobic exercise or even some sort of repeat sprint is we really want to like increase their mitochondrial density, and
Yeah.
we do that through doing, low intensity repetitive exercise. And walking's great. So even though it's different muscles, it's still enough of the same muscles, and you can use them for a really, 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 really long time at a really low intensity. And I think it just complements like a bike training, a cycling training, or a running training program. Just really, really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's anything where we can use our lower limbs chronically is going to improve not only mitochondrial biodensity, but also the vascularity of the muscles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
you
right.
get like this double benefit. On Sunday, I did a presentation on training with heart rate. and I center the training with heart rate thing around the aerobic development. And you get like this best of both worlds where you have this powerhouse that uses fat and oxygen, two sources that are readily available within, your body and the atmosphere. And so you get more mitochondria that's going to burn that. And then you get more blood, or not only blood volume, but also blood transport to the muscle. So it's like, man, I'm utilizing more oxygen and more fat, and I'm going faster.
Yeah.
I'm getting lighter. So it's just like this
Yeah.
huge benefit. But the walk,
and that's what you want from training.
it's
That's
hard.
exactly what you want.
This goes back to that easy training versus overtraining, where it doesn't feel hard enough.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to go over, because this morning, man, I did like an hour 40, and I was just so unmotivated, because that chronic load of training, of easy training, is actually really hard in itself, because you don't get these large, like this 1 week of having to sleep in because you've just thrashed yourself acutely over like a couple of weeks, so you just keep training, like you get a lot fitter. But man, it is hard in that nature, right?
Yeah, it gets harder eventually, doesn't it? It doesn't start off really hard because you're going easy, right? It catches up with you. Yeah.
So if I'm thinking cross training, like if it's doing something like that, that's where the strength aspect of it, with you're more interested in, I find is it's hard to juggle that load.
Oh yeah. Well, you just can't do that much of it, especially if we're talking like not a lot of strength training, like 1 or 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's enough a lot of the time.
Like
1 day a week.
It's like when you're on the bike, it's hard to overload the sheer amount of training you have to do if you're training aerobically and you're just riding a bike is 15 to 20 hours if you want to get some really, really impressive gains.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we're into.
Bike. Like, what are your guys doing? The top end of the field.
A big week will be 25, but that's adding in, like that's 25 hours, and some of that would be in the gym. Yeah. So, and that's really hard to kind of juggle, because that's why most of our rides are going to be easy, because the gym is hard and we're doing really high volume. So we really need to make sure that we're not overdoing it.
Well, you're doing a high volume consistently, I think, which is the point that a lot of people miss, is like, it's not about trying to hit 25 now that that's what the pros are doing. It's like they're going to hit 25 and then go back to 20 and just sustain that.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're looking at your own training plan, or you're talking with your coach, you need to understand, like, these are my upper limits. What are my consistent levels?
Yeah. Most people can't do 20 hours even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Or even if they could fit it in.
It didn't work out well.
Yeah. It's a lot. And, you see it all the time. Like, someone's really, really motivated, and, they're like, yep, I'm into training. And they'll start with, 20-hour weeks. They'll do it for about a month, and then they're just absolutely cooked.
Probably even a bit long.
Yeah, probably maybe 3 weeks, and then they're just cracked and they're done, and they disappear and you never see them again.
Yeah, it is about that sustaining. So when we go back to cross training, if it's something you can add in that's allowing for a specific development, we're always looking at specificity when we're looking at what are you trying to achieve out of your athletic endeavors. If it's just to lose weight, then that's something completely different. If it is to target your mountain bike race, your triathlon, then you need to be looking at the workouts you're doing, if they're helping that. Like, if you're doing your upper body, if you're a runner and you're doing an upper body circuit, it's not to get bigger muscles. It's more of a increase in, I guess, a bit of cardiovascular stuff, but also energy expenditure.
Yeah, just help you lose a little bit more weight if that's what you need to do. Yeah, the runners don't need huge biceps.
Neither do cyclists.
No,
how do mountain bikers go? Like, how do you monitor weight with them?
Well, it gets a bit
races, right? Are you interested in body composition and things there?
No, so with cyclists, normally like the gold standard is power to weight ratio.
Yes.
Um, and that's really important if you're racing up a hill.
Yeah.
And with the gravity racers, they just end up having too much muscle mass to have a really good power to weight ratio. So they'll be like your really, really good, like high level, cross country racer, even though they're a gravity racer.
Yeah.
But their power to weight ratios, just because they have so much mass, the ratio is a bit down. So we try not to really look at the ratio. We just kind of try and make sure that they're not too fat, really.
So you
There's not
are
much you
interested
can
in
do.
body composition though, because if you look at the downhillers of recent years, they look in shape.
They are.
Like, you look
They're
at Danny
machines.
Hart, like 5 years ago versus now.
Yeah, they're just absolutely in shape, and that's just because you just need to be fit. You just absolutely need to be super fit. Like they're doing a lot of aerobic exercise, even though they're racing 3 to 5 minutes, because they need to repeat sprints, so they need to be really aerobically efficient. So they get pretty lean, but they still do carry around a lot of extra mass. So if you calculate their power to weight ratio, you're going to look at them and be like, well, they're not going to go uphill that fast, and they don't need to.
Yeah.
They just need to put out really, really big power.
Yeah. So what about trying to balance between, I guess this is like sort of another podcast episode, enduro versus downhill, because those guys are biking up hills, but then need to go down hills fast. Does that provide a bit of a conundrum?
No, not really, because they're not racing up hills. They just need to do it, and they need to do it fast enough to get there in time. And it needs to create no stress for them, really. So
Right.
that's why
So
they need
they're
to be
already, especially these days, aerobically fit enough to sustain like the recovery bouts of those short repeated sprints in a downhill circuit, so that biking around the forest or mountain or whatever for 4 hours is not like that bad.
Yeah, they just need to make sure their butts don't hurt, really. So they need to spend enough time in the saddle.
Yeah.
You don't want to get to the race and have your, tushy be sore the whole time. That kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't comment on it. Not a huge enduro guy.
Yeah.
Myself, but I'll have to try it out.
I've seen you hit jumps.
Yeah, man. I do love the jumps. Dodsley Skill Park, Rotorua. That place is sick. Getting up to them. Hey, well, what else do you want to? We've been going for a while enough. I think we've broached most of our thoughts anyway around cross training. Like, I think for me, it's the secondary. First of all, we're going to look at, can we, in your available time and energy, can we train just specifically for what you need to do? And then alongside that, if we can't, I'm going to introduce cross training in there. And when I am, it's going to be specific. So mountain biking for running, or increased. I mean, when we're dealing with triathlon, it's just super easy because you just go, okay, you're injured in one sport. Now you just do more of two or more. And yeah, otherwise that's how I deal with it. And you may find, like, if you slow things down or break it up, you can actually train the actual volumes you want to.
Yeah.
Your main thoughts around cross training?
Yeah, so the main thing that I think about with cross training is that, sometimes you just need a real good mental break from the thing that you're focusing on, especially if you're only focusing on one sport. So to have an activity that you can do that is, beneficial to what you're training for, cross training activity that's going to, not going to hinder you, could potentially help you for your sport, and it's totally different to what you normally do, then I think just mentally, as breaking up the training, I think that's really good to have.
That's actually a good point that you didn't bring up at all until right now.
Yeah.
That I never really thought of, that mental break.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing a single sport, and you're doing like the predominant, like if you're in base phase before season, wow, that can be really taxing if you're not, hugely driven.
Yeah. Oh, and weather wise as well, because if I'm working with an athlete in Colorado, sometimes they can't just go out and do a 6-hour bike ride.
I have a guy. Mate, I'll give a shout out to Pan American Xterra champion Kieran McPherson. That guy has been living in Colorado and is just put in. I think today he's about to fly back to New Zealand, but he's putting the 6 hours out on the Wahoo kicker, watching the baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So some people do it.
Yeah.
It can be done. It can be done.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't want to take a baby on a big snowy hike, so that, he doesn't really have any options. But
yeah. So he's killing a few birds with one stone there.
yeah, that's right. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's you're 100% correct there in terms of breaking up that mental fatigue of training, which can be just as important as the physical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think unless there's anything else you want to add, Matthew.
I could probably talk about this all day, but let's just leave it. But other snow sports are cool too, and they're good for other reasons. We can talk about that next time.
Snowshoeing and cross country skiing.
Yeah, downhill skiing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, moguls.
So, yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, we should end it up. How do you want to finish? I'll let you finish. I started.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into the Performance Advantage podcast. Will, thanks for having me, and we'll see you next week.
I don't know if I really have you. Like it's sort of like not going to be the same if you're not there now.
Okay. Well,
if you're watching it on the Performance Advantage Facebook page, be sure to check out Matt's MTB PhD page, and vice versa. If you're watching on his, check out mine. All right. Until next time.